Okay. Start. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here, especially the members of the press for turning out to be able to report this wonderful news. I was reflecting that I was installed 21 years ago as Archbishop here. I had just come from the Diocese of Palm Beach, where I had served for only 9 months before receiving the call that brought me to Boston. So I understand Bishop-elect Henning's surprise at his nomination after such a short tenure in the Diocese of Providence. I hope they'll forgive us in Providence. Archbishop-elect Henning, welcome to the Archdiocese of Boston. Thank you for accepting this challenge to continue your priestly ministry here. We're one of the largest archdioceses of the United States, with around 250 parishes, almost 2 million Catholics, more than 900 priests, 300 deacons, and almost 100 communities of religious women and men, and 115 Catholic schools. You will find that our priests, religious, deacons, and laity love the Church. They love serving Christ, and they will support you and assist you and pray for you daily. And we are blessed with a very vibrant Catholic community. For the 2 decades that I have been here as Archbishop, I found strength from the deep faith of our Catholic people. They care about the less fortunate, the forgotten, the sick, the single mother caring for her children, the person suffering from addiction, for the migrants, and for the homeless. Conscious that Boston has the largest percentage of young adults of any major city in the United States, this brings a great challenge, but also a great opportunity for our Catholic community. We have extensive campus ministry programs and young adults actively engaged in their faith, as witnessed by their participation in last year's World Youth Day and in the recent Eucharistic Congress. This year it was a great joy to ordain 11 new priests for the Archdiocese of Boston, and yesterday I learned that we are poised to receive 18 new seminarians for the Archdiocese in the fall. For us, these are signs of hope. Soon the Church will initiate a Holy Year, designated as the Year of the Pilgrims of Hope. Our new Archbishop-elect will begin his ministry on the eve of this Holy Year as he's installed on October the 31st. The arrival of a new Archbishop is always a time of renewal and hope. To the people of the Archdiocese, Bishop-elect Henning brings the heart of a pastor in his new role. His fluency in Spanish will allow him to engage directly with our large Hispanic Catholic population. The Archbishop-elect has extensive academic credentials, having received a BA and MA in history from St. John's University in New York, received his training for priesthood, the Seminary Immaculate Conception in New York, and following his ordination in 1992, he earned his licentiate in biblical theology at the Catholic University of America and doctorate from the University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome. He served on the faculty of the Seminary of the Immaculate Conception in Huntington, New York, where he taught Scripture for many years. In 2012, as part of the Partnership for Seminary Formation among the Dioceses of Rockville Center, Brooklyn, and the Archdiocese of New York, the then Monsignor Henning was appointed to lead the Seminary of the Immaculate Conception through its transition to the largest retreat house in the Northeast. The Archbishop-elect was ordained a bishop in 2018, serving as an auxiliary bishop for the Diocese of Rockville Center, where he had previously served as regional vicar, vicar for the clergy, and pastoral planning. In 2023, the Holy Father appointed Archbishop-elect Henning as the coadjutor bishop of Providence. He succeeded Bishop Tobin as the Bishop of Providence on May the 1st, 2023. Pope Francis has said, "A priest is someone who transmits hope to restless hearts." In Archbishop-elect Henning, I believe this is to be a true virtue and example of his priestly care for the people of God. Archbishop Henning is a joyful pastor who seeks to serve Christ and his people. Please join me in welcoming him for his comments.
Before I offer my remarks, I just want to thank the members of the media who are here today. It's a bit of a shock to me to see all of you here, but I'm delighted that you are here, and I understand that your task is a very important one for the common good. So I certainly will pray that the Lord will strengthen you in that work, the commitment to the truth, and helping people understand one another and the world that we live in. So thank you for your presence today. I'm very grateful to Almighty God for the abundance of life made possible by His love and His grace, and I invoke the Lord's help as I look forward to beginning this new ministry. I'm also grateful to our Holy Father for his confidence in the gift of this call to shepherd the extraordinary Church of Boston. Several years ago, I was with the Holy Father and the bishops of New York State on what's called an ad limina visit, and he spoke there with us about closeness. He talked about how the bishop needs to be, close to the Lord, close to the people, close to each other as bishops. And in the course of that conversation, I said to the Holy Father, Holy Father, I wonder if there's another closeness we should talk about, and that's our closeness to you. So I'd like to say today that on this day in particular, I feel very close to the Holy Father, and again grateful for his shepherding of the universal church. Very grateful to you also, Cardinal O'Malley, certainly for your kindness to me in these days, but also for the extraordinary ministry that you have exercised and will continue to exercise for the sake of the church, and particularly for the Church of Boston. So I look forward to you being my tutor in many, many things, and I will do my best to live the witness that you have given to us all. I also want to express my gratitude to the bishops, priests, and people of the dioceses of Rockville Center and Providence, who really have formed me and taught me and uplifted me in the faith. But I hope you'd understand, those of you in Boston today, that I do feel a special tug in my heart today for my beloved Rhode Islanders. This has been an extraordinary year with them. I've only been with them for a brief time, but it's been a very intense and joy-filled time. So I will miss the State of Hope, and it's really good people. As I look forward now to this new ministry in the Bay State, I would like to offer greetings to the clergy, religious, and faithful of Boston, and to all men and women of goodwill. I'm humbled by the size and the history of this archdiocese, and I am very well aware that I have a lot to learn. And so I'll be eager for your witness of faith and to learn your wisdom. I think my first job really is just to be listener and to begin to understand. I realize that many want to know something about me now. Maybe some of you are as surprised by this appointment as I was, but maybe the first thing is simply to say that I am a sinner in need of grace, and that I place my faith, my trust, my hope in the Lord Jesus, who is bread for the world and the King of love. I was baptized into his covenant in my infancy and raised up as his child by my parents, Maureen and Richard. And it was the example of my parents, alongside the witness of parish priests and my extended family, that helped me to hear the Lord's summons to serve his church. My parents are watching now, I hope, if they've managed to figure out the technology. And so if you are, I can never express enough my love and gratitude to you, Mom and Dad. I have had the privilege and priesthood of taking time to study theology and the Word of God. And as great a blessing as those studies have been for me, the greatest joy of my life has been the school of love that is God's people. Across parishes and dioceses, I have learned to love, to trust, and to serve. God also gave me the gift of learning the Spanish language, a gift which has opened a door to a world of faith and grace. And so I am eager to get to know our Spanish-speaking Catholics here in the Archdiocese. I'm also studying Portuguese at the moment, still working on it. We'll see how I do with that one. There'll be more to say in the coming months and years. For now, I hope you hear my gratitude. I also ask for your prayers. I am not worthy of this call. I was deeply shocked and surprised by this call. But I know the goodness of God suffices in all things. I will trust in him. God bless the Archdiocese of Boston.
Our first question is going to come from Antonio Enrique, and then just put your hand up if you have a question.
Archbishop-elect, first of all, welcome to Boston. And if I may say also welcome to the pilot, because I'm the editor of the pilot and Cardinal Sean is the publisher. So my sense is that you are going to join on his steps. Big things to do. Okay, very well. My first question would be just to know if you could share your thoughts after this appointment of the Holy Father, particularly after the fact that your time in Rhode Island was a little abbreviated. Mm-hmm. So if you want to share how you feel about that.
Yeah, so I've gotten this call 3 times, first as an auxiliary, then to go to Providence, and now to Boston. This one was the most shocking of the 3, because I had only been in Providence a short time, so I guess I felt safe where I was. So when the nuncio called me, I thought it was about another matter, and I answered very innocently, and then he told me the news. I think it took me about 3 minutes to respond. I had to go sit down first, because my first thought really was the people in Rhode Island. They have been so good to me for a year, and I'd like to say that I think I dove deep into the pool. I just gave myself over to them in every way I knew how, and their response was so moving to me that was the hardest part of it for me. But I am a man under authority, and there are times when a bishop has to call a pastor who's very happy where he is and say, I need you to move for reasons you may not understand. And I have to rely on priests, to be willing to do that. So how could I not do the same? So if the Holy Father asks, my answer is always going to be yes, and it was yes that day. And I have no regrets in saying that yes, even as, again, I feel a certain sadness at leaving behind the people who have been so kind to me.
Thank you.
New York Times?
Over here, Maya Schwader from the New York Times.
Good morning.
For Cardinal O'Malley, if you could reflect on your tenure a bit and tell us how you think the American Church has changed in that time. And for both of you, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing the American Church today?
Well, Friday, I marked my 40th anniversary as a bishop. This is my 4th diocese, so in 40 years, there's been a lot of changes, not just in the church, but in our world. And we have many, many challenges today that we didn't have in the past. The secularization of the culture, so many challenges that we have faced as a church and in society. My 20 years in Boston have been challenging and wonderful years in many respects, but when I arrived, it was at a time of great crisis and great pain because of the terrible scourge of sexual abuse. But despite all of the challenges that we have, I am filled with hope. And I see the faith of our people. I see people who have come forward to be a part of the mission of the church and has stayed with the church through very, very difficult times. And I think that the leadership of Pope Francis also challenges us to be a synodal church where we learn to listen to people and to, as the Archbishop-elect talked about, the vicinanza, the closeness that we need to have with each other, with God's people, with the poor, and an ability to be able to build bridges and to try and bring peace and reconciliation in a world where there's so much division. I think that, so the challenges for the church are very, very great, but the opportunities are very great. And I have the firm belief that the Lord is always with us. He never promised that it would be easy, but He promised that He would be with us. And in my many years as a Capuchin brother and as a bishop, I have seen that presence and the love and the providence that the Lord's care for us has been, and I see the arrival of the new Archbishop as one more indication of God's loving providence for His church.
Okay. Obviously, even in since I was ordained a priest back in 1992, much has changed. Many things have surprised us. I think that's within and without the church. But I'm also a student of history, and I know that the church has faced so many very large crises over 2,000 years. It's not new to us to have kind of upheavals and difficulties, but we come to them with that broader perspective that ultimately God is in charge, that we may be sinners, we may make mistakes, but that we trust that God is going to guide His church out of the kind of the morass. And I think that's the faith that gives me hope. So my job isn't necessarily to fix everything. It's more a matter of planting those seeds. And I think right now, if I may, I don't mean this in an arrogant sense, but I think the wider culture in which we live has also, in some sense, lost its way. People are searching. They don't know even what to look for. And I believe that in Jesus Christ we find not just the face of the God who is love, but the model of who we were made to be and called to be as human beings. So I think the church has something to offer the wider culture in its upheavals as well. There's a wisdom and a compassion and a commitment to community there that I hope can be meaningful to all of the people of this city, not just the Catholic faithful.
Danny McDonald, Globe.
Hi, Danny McDonald, Boston Globe. A question
Hi,
for the Archbishop-elect. Some advocates are saying you could have done more in terms of handling the clergy sex abuse scandal and its followed in Rockville Center. What's your response to that criticism?
I would like to know precisely what they mean by that. So my role there was, I was not the diocesan bishop. Are you referring to the
There seems
diocese
to be some complaints
bankruptcy?
about lack of transparency, the in Rockville Center going into bankruptcy, and some people feel like that was not the most victim-forward move. Seems to be the crux of the criticism.
Right. Well, Bishop Barris at the time argued, and it makes sense to me, I agree with it, that it really was the only decision that would have allowed the diocese to meet the obligations to survivors, as well as continue the mission of the church. My understanding of the bankruptcy process is that by its nature it is transparent, meaning that the entity that goes into bankruptcy has to pretty much reveal its internal workings, its budgets, its resources, its reserves, all of that. So I would dispute the characterization, I guess I would say. But I also would have to say that I was not involved myself in a day-to-day process of the bankruptcy process. That was not part of my role. Obviously, as an auxiliary bishop, I supported and worked with Bishop Barris. And again, I would not dispute the decision under those circumstances. the nature of the moment faced by the diocese didn't leave really any other choice. The diocese could not continue in the face of the obligations that were piling up and still be able to meet them as well as continue.
On that point, just a quick follow-up. What would you say to the lapsed Catholics of Greater Boston who have left the church over their disgust of the institution's handling of the clergy sex abuse scandal? What's your message to them?
My message to them is I'll listen to their pain, their woundedness. I certainly lived through that as well. When these crimes and sins were committed, I was also a child. I'm grateful to God that I was not affected by it personally, but people in my generation were. So I think those survivors, they deserve, they deserve a listening heart. In some ways, they often have as much to proclaim to us about the gospel as we would to them. If there are Catholics who are scandalized, I understand why they're scandalized. It's scandalous, and it's certainly been painful for me over the course of my life. But it has not made me lose my faith in God or my faith in the possibility of reconciliation and new life, even in the midst of what may feel devastating. So I would say to them that if I have failed you, if a leader in the church has failed you, I'm so sorry, but God has not failed you. God is still with you. And it would be tragic for you to lose your relationship with God, the blessings that flow from that because of my actions or failures. But at the end of the day, all I can do is listen and hope and pray with the person, I think.
We've got Telemundo right here.
Buenos días, Jennifer.
Buenos días, ¿cómo está?
Buenos días, con Telemundo. La pregunta es para ambos. En sí, ¿qué desafíos han visto en la iglesia y qué desafíos que ven para el futuro? ¿Cómo se van a abordar esos desafíos para poder llamar nuevamente a lo que él mencionaba, esas personas que tal vez se han alejado de la iglesia?
Do you want to start?
Pues hay muchos desafíos en la iglesia. Estamos hablando también de la inmigración y la presencia de tantos hispanoparlantes en la diócesis y en el área. Para nosotros no es solo un desafío, es también una oportunidad y una gracia. Y yo tuve la dicha como un sacerdote de dedicar todo mi sacerdocio, yo llamo la luna de miel de mi sacerdocio, a trabajar entre los hispanos en Washington, que mayormente eran centroamericanos huyendo las guerras en América Central. Y yo vivía de cerca su sufrimiento, pero también ellos me enseñaron cómo ser un sacerdote. Su fe, su espíritu de sacrificio, su espíritu de comunidad. Para nosotros, la presencia hispana es una bendición enorme y es una de las áreas donde la comunidad de creyentes está creciendo. Y así estamos confiados de que el nuevo arzobispo, que también tiene mucho interés en el mundo hispano, que ha aprendido castellano, que quiere mucho a los hispanos, va a ser una bendición, una gracia muy grande también para nuestra comunidad aquí en la arquidiócesis.
Gracias por la pregunta. Claro, hay muchas preocupaciones, muchas cosas, pero otra vez, para mí empezamos primero con la gracia de Dios, ¿no? Que claro, en esta vida hay muchos momentos de malentendimiento, a veces de violencia, de injusticia, pero si podemos recordar el ejemplo de los primeros cristianos, podemos ver a personas viviendo en un mundo de mucha violencia, mucha injusticia, muchas dificultades. Eran un grupo pequeñísimo en medio de una cultura que estaba al contrario, ¿no? Pero ellos han vivido el amor de Dios en una manera que ha atraccionado a los otros, y ellos han encontrado sabiduría en la palabra de Dios, han proclamado la palabra no solo con la boca, más con la vida, ¿no? So, para mí, claro, especialmente en una arquidiócesis así, tan grande, hay cosas de la burocracia que necesitamos que hacer, claro. Y siempre vamos a experimentar argumentos, ¿no? en cosas así. Pero al fondo empieza con el Evangelio, empieza con la fe. Y el mundo hispano es así, ¿no? En la diócesis de Providencia, los hispanos están organizando retiros, hay misas muy alegres, música que me toca el corazón, ¿no? Me parece que para nosotros en la Iglesia de Norteamérica, la influencia de Latinoamérica es una influencia por la bondad, una recuerda de la importancia de la familia, de la fe, de la comunidad, de compasión uno por el otro. Claro, siempre hay desafíos, pero siempre, como el cardenal ha dicho, hay bendiciones y Dios está presente en medio de todo.
Thank you. We're going to go 3 more, and then Bishop-elect Henning, Archbishop-elect Henning will stick around for a couple after the Cardinals needs to go to another. So we're going to go BUR, Channel 5, and then John will go to you.
Cristela Guerra, BUR. I'm curious, what do the next 6 months look like? How does this transition work? Just practically, what do you have to prepare yourself for a job like this, especially when it sort of emerged from the blue? And then to follow up with that, there is an election looming. One of the major issues is immigration, and there are migrants that are living on the streets right now looking for practical assistance. What do you feel should be the role of the church locally to help folks that are currently in train stations at night?
Who are you directing?
Both.
Well, the installation will take place on the 31st of October, which is right after the Synod, because it was thought that it would, a number of we want to be able to invite bishops from other dioceses in the United States, and many will be tied up in the Synod process. So, as it turns out, it's Halloween. So I'm sure there'll be many.
I have my outfit picked out, by the way.
Exactly. There'll be many comments about the trick-or-treating, and But so during this time, of course, Archbishop-elect Henning is going to have to kind of close down his operations in Providence, but also it's an opportunity for him to begin to get to know some of the players here in Boston, and certainly then to go and begin to, once he gets here, to visit the parishes and to get to know the clergy and the religious and deacons and everyone else. I think his words are very wise to say that he's going to be listening, and that has to be the stance. Certainly, the problems with immigration are very, very serious. The Archdiocese has tried to do everything we can to be cooperative with Governor Healy and with the local communities that are trying to deal with this problem. Catholic Charities has been just fantastic, and the parishes as well. And the Bishops' Conference continues to advocate for immigration reform. Our system is broken, and that is what has caused this problem. And unfortunately, it is, causing so much anti-immigrant sentiment in the population, which to me is so ridiculous. There's no country in the world that has our capacity to assimilate people. Europe would love to have our problems. The children of our immigrants will be Americans, and they will be identified with this country and will make extraordinary contributions. The population of Boston was 1/3 Irish Catholic within a year after the famine in Ireland, where 1 million people starved to death. It must have seemed like an invasion, and those people weren't happy to see us. But I think we've made a contribution and have become part of that community. And I see many blessings in the presence of these immigrants here. But we need a system that deals with immigrants and does it in a way that is humane and fair and avoids this chaos at the borders, but brings people into our country to be part of it, so that they can be with us and have a path to citizenship and to participation. For the church, we've always been an immigrant church, and so it's always been our priorities. And at the Bishops' Conference, so much of our work, so much of our ministry, so much of our advocacy has been in this area of immigration, and we're very concerned with the attitude that's out there. I hope that we can, when the Holy Father was elected, the first trip he made was to Lampedusa, and he threw that wreath into the Mediterranean Sea, where thousands of migrants had drowned in their attempt to escape from oppression and starvation and to come to Europe. So we have to overcome what the Holy Father coined as the globalization of indifference, and at the same time to have a humane response to the immigrants who are arriving on our shores.
So I'll first say ditto. I think in terms of your first part of your question, another practical thing, I only live in Providence, it's 45 minutes away. I'll be able to come up and receive briefings in the coming months and begin, anyway, to understand the magnitude of this archdiocese. On the immigration question, obviously I'm not yet educated as to precisely what the archdiocese does or Catholic Charities does. My experience of life in the church, though, I would just add is that, we're not always so much about the policy questions or programs, but the Catholic Church and its compassion outreach is really good at persons. For us, the question always comes down to the persons, our reverence for the human person. So I would guess that characterizes the work of Catholic Charities here in the Archdiocese as well.
Sarah, and then we're going to go John, and then we'll...
Archbishop Henning, elect Henning. Sarah Conji from Channel 5.
Hi, Sarah.
You are stepping into this role in a presidential year, in a very politically divisive time. How activist do you anticipate being on some issues like abortion, same-sex marriage, that have, yet again, come to the forefront in light of what's going on in Washington?
I will admit, I don't know that I've ever been an activist. I'm not that exciting. So, and my stance in Providence has been that I'm a pastor, not a politician. So the church's own teaching recognizes the kind of the right and the obligation of the lay people to engage in the political process. And that it is really, in the sense, their arena first and foremost. So it's really not for me to comment on candidates or how people should vote or things like that. The church does advocate for policy matters related to church teaching, and that's a host of things. Not all of them always end up in public view, but there's a whole host of things that the church might comment on. So I think what I want to do is to help the Catholics, the faithful of this archdiocese, form their consciences. And I certainly have opinions. I will vote, as an American citizen. I'll never tell you for whom I vote. I don't belong to a party. That's not my job to advocate for either side. I am pro-life because I believe that the gospel teaches us the sacred dignity of every human life. But I know there are people of goodwill who passionately disagree with that. And I think, as the Holy Father keeps reminding us, we have to kind of take the risk of dialogue. We have to try to listen and hear each other. And just as the Cardinal was saying about immigration in the United States, we have the resources. Like every woman should have a full choice, and one of those choices should be to bring her child to term, knowing that she will be supported and assisted in that. So I think there's room here for us to talk to one another and really to reverence the beauty and the sacred nature of human life.
Last question, John Maroney, and then we'll be.
Cardinal, there'll be a lot of talk about your legacy over the next couple of days, weeks. I guess I'd ask you to reflect a little bit on what you believe your legacy has been here in the city of Boston. And also, after the 31st, what you want your plan might be. Will you remain in the city or will you go somewhere else?
Well, I guess I haven't been thinking in terms of my legacy. My ministry here was done with the support and the help of so many wonderful people that if there's any legacy, it's a work of a communion of people who love the church, love their faith, love Christ, and have wanted to be a part of the mission that He's entrusted to us. As far as my next steps, I will probably divide my time between Boston and Washington, the Capuchin monastery there. I worked 20 years in Washington with immigrants, and I'll probably be involved in that once again, but Holy Father's asked me to continue for the time being as president of the Commission for the Safeguarding, and so I don't think I'll be bored. I'm not going to take up golf or but I will try and stay out of the new Archbishop's way, but to be available to him if he needs me for anything. But I am so grateful to the kindness, the patience of the people of the Archdiocese who put up with me for 21 years and have always been so kind and loving. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. The Cardinal's going to depart. Archbishop Henning, you will stick around for a couple minutes if anybody's got some one-on-ones. I think those people from Channel 12 are over there. So thank you very much.
All right.
Well,
Thank All right, which way? Over here.
I don't know if anybody's. Does anybody have anything you want to ask them one-on-one? Okay, right over here.
So this is a big turn.